Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi Bapak-Bapak, Ibu-Ibu, dan teman-teman semua dimanapun Anda berada sekarang di seluruh Indonesia maupun di luar negeri. Pada hari ini kita memasuki hari kedua pelatihan Histology-Based Rapid Reproductive Analysis for Tropical Fish, modul pertama. Saya Eni Buhari, saya akan menjadi moderator pada hari ini. Buat teman-teman, bapak-bapak, dan ibu-ibu yang baru bergabung pada hari ini, sekedar informasi bahwa pelatihan ini terdiri dari 2 modul dan akan diberikan dalam 4 sesi atau 4 hari yang berbeda. Hari pertama kita sudah laksanakan tanggal 18 Januari kemarin, sekarang hari kedua, dan berikutnya hari ketiga tanggal 1 Februari dan 4 Februari, 2 minggu yang akan datang, pada jam yang sama, jam 9 pagi hingga 12 siang, waktu Indonesia bagian Barat. Nah, materi ini akan diberikan langsung oleh tim instruktur dari Hawaii, yang terdiri dari 3 orang. Yang pertama adalah Dr. Eric Franklin dari the University of Hawaii. Yang kedua, Dr. Ken Longenecker dari Bishop Museum di Hawaii. Dan yang ketiga adalah Dr. Ross Langston dari Windward Community College juga di Hawaii. Buat teman-teman, Bapak Ibu yang baru bergabung pada hari ini, sedikit rules ya, aturan untuk pelaksanaan training ini. Mohon Bapak Ibu mengklik tombol speaker view di bagian kanan atas dari layar Zoom Anda, sehingga Bapak Ibu bisa melihat langsung layar dari yang berbicara, sehingga nanti tampilan dari materi training akan lebih jelas terlihat. Kemudian juga semua mic peserta dibisukan atau di-mute secara otomatis oleh sistem ketika masuk. Namun nanti pada sesi pertanyaan, Bapak Ibu bisa angkat tangan atau raise hand, tombol di bawah, sehingga nanti moderator akan memilih secara random beberapa penanya untuk bisa bertanya secara live. Jika Bapak Ibu ada pertanyaan yang mau ditanyakan langsung secara tertulis, Bapak Ibu bisa mengklik tombol Q&A di bagian bawah layar Zoom Anda dan bisa langsung ketik di situ, baik dalam bahasa Inggris maupun dalam bahasa Indonesia. Dan salah satu dari tim instruktur akan bisa menjawab langsung pertanyaan Anda. Jika Bapak Ibu punya lebih banyak lagi pertanyaan, Bapak Ibu juga bisa mengirim email ke email tanya.histology@gmail.com. Kemudian yang terakhir, pelatihan ini akan diberikan dalam bahasa Inggris. Nah, di bagian bawah dari screen Anda ada icon globe untuk terjemahan secara langsung atau simultaneous interpretation, dan Bapak Ibu bisa memilih bahasa yang dikehendaki. Oke, hari ini akan dimulai oleh Bapak Ross, Pak Ross Langston yang akan merekap materi dari hari pertama tanggal 18 Januari kemarin. Beliau akan melanjutkan beberapa materi termasuk polling, beberapa gambar histologi, preparat histologi nanti yang Bapak Ibu bisa kembali mengikutinya, dan acara ini akan ditutup oleh penjelasan introduction atau pendahuluan barangkali terkait analisis preparat histologi dengan menggunakan Excel oleh Pak Ken dan dengan menggunakan R oleh Pak Eric sebagai pendahuluan untuk modul 2 yang akan datang. Oke, kita mulai saja acara ini. Saya Eni Buhari akan menyerahkan mic kepada Pak Ross. Pak Ross, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Eni. Okay, can everybody hear me? Somebody say yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes, Pak. Yes.
Okay, excellent. So last time we talked about some features in gonads that can help us to identify males and females and maturity from immature individuals. Today we're going to have a recap of that information, but we're also going to go through some of the processes of making sure that we can make the whole entire process as efficient as possible. So if you remember last time we talked about the schematic of examining gonad sections. We look at a gonad section at either 40x or 100x total magnification and decide whether or not it's gonad. And then if it's gonad, we use two different criteria, either ovarian or testicular criteria, to evaluate those gonads. But we said before, we also have this route over here when we decide that what we're looking at is not gonad. And again, why does that happen? Well, it happens because we've made a mistake when we were collecting our tissues. So we're going to go back through and talk about some commonly miscollected tissues that are embedded in lieu of gonads, and also talk about ways to make this process more efficient and make sure that we maximize the number of gonads that we process. Okay, so if we look at one of the most commonly collected tissues is liver. Now liver is an organ that is cranial to the stomach up here, but it has long sort of lobes that extend into the viscera. They're very smooth. They have the texture similar to testis. And so some new collectors, people working on fish, will inadvertently collect liver and embed that. But in histology, we can differentiate liver very easily. It has a central vein, just like a human liver, and these peripheral sinusoids. So it's very obviously not gonad, and we can set that one aside. Okay, and then we had gut. We talked about gut last time. The gut consists of the stomach and also the intestines, which are over on this side. And they're also commonly collected mistakenly thinking that they're gonads. But in the histology, we can look at the gut and see it has a huge internal lumen. It has a mucosal epithelium that has goblet cells that are visible at probably 400x. And so it's very obviously not gonad. And so it's very easy to throw that one out as well. And then we get swim bladder. Now, swim bladder is not that commonly collected except in very small individuals. In a newly dissected fish, the swim bladder is smooth. It is white in appearance. It looks sort of like a testis. So some people may inadvertently collect that. But histologically, it looks very different. It has a fibrous connective tissue outer layer in there. And if we look within the swim bladder itself, we see all kinds of interesting stuff like the gas gland in there, the riccia mirabile. So it looks very, very different from ovary or testis. Now, that being said, take a look what's over here. That is gonad. So gonads usually are going to be hanging from the swim bladder ventrally. So if you're having problem collecting gonads and you collect the swim bladder, chances are you might have gonads connected to that. Okay. Another commonly misidentified tissue that is collected instead of gonads is kidney. Kidney sits up in the dorsal body cavity above the swim bladder. We talked about this last time, but it has a very different appearance histologically than testis does. Although it's made up of tubules, just like the testis, these tubules have thicker walls and are made up of usually cuboidal or columnar epithelium. And then over on the left side, you can actually see the brush border, which is specific to the proximal convoluted tubule of the kidney. So that brush border would never be found in any type of gonadal tissue. Okay, so given these types of organs that we commonly miscollect and misidentify during our macroscopic dissection, how can we make the process of obtaining gonads and processing them more efficient? We're going to go through a few different pieces of advice. First, and this is most important, is use your best team members to do the dissections. In every work group, there is that one student or one instructor who's very good at dissecting out the tiniest of gonads and has a very high retrieval rate. Use that person to do your dissections, particularly on problematic species or specimens. The most crucial step in this whole process of histology is collecting the right tissues. So make sure you have people that are highly trained that can do that. The next advice is for collecting the smallest gonads. Anybody who's helped to generate one of these logistic L50 curves knows that it becomes increasingly more difficult to remove and obtain the gonads for the individuals that are at or below the size at minimum maturity. But these individuals are very crucial for establishing a robust L50 curve. For that reason, if you're having problems reliably removing gonads from individuals at small size ranges, consider just taking some of the posterior abdominal viscera, the last 30% or so, and just embedding the whole thing if possible. It's very likely that you'll retrieve some of the gonads in there and be able to make those identifications. For example, you can see these are immature ovaries hanging below the swim bladder and below the kidney right here. If we go to the next slide, here you can see the swim bladder once again, and these are small gonads. We would probably call them undifferentiated gonads. Take a look at the size scale up there. That's 100 microns. So this whole area across here is probably less than 2 processing specimens. Make sure you have fresh gonads. Be nice to your gonads. The point is if you do histology on rotten gonads, you're going to get rotten histology. So when you go to get your fish from the market over there, make sure they smell okay. Get them on ice right away or freeze them. It is fine to freeze gonadal tissue as long as it hasn't been frozen and thawed and frozen and thawed. Otherwise, you get a mess like this right here, and that can be very hard to identify under the microscope. Okay. These 6 gonadal sections each show testis on this side, testis, testis, and testis, as well as ovary that has undergone basically rotting and deterioration because they weren't preserved for a while, and that caused a breakdown in the cellular structure. You can still identify male and female, but you might have a hard time identifying whether they were mature or immature. Okay, so let's go back and now talk about our classification of ovaries. This is a review from last time. We said before that ovaries are the female gonads, and they are bilobed, and that most coral reef fishes have ovaries with multiple stages in them. And for those ovaries, we classify the ovaries by the most advanced stage of oocyte that are present within those ovaries. So just a reminder that we said that we recognize 4 different stages of oocytes within the ovaries. We have stage 1 or primary growth, stage 2, which is lipid vesicle, stage 3, which is vitellogenesis, and stage 4, which is maturation. So anything that's at or beyond stage 3 is considered reproductively mature for the purposes of estimating L50. Okay, our first oocytes, remember, were primary growth or stage 1 oocytes. These are dark staining oocytes. They have a dark ooplasm. They are angular. They lack a zona radiata or shell, and they have a very circular nucleus, which makes up a large proportion of the cytoplasm. The next most advanced stage of oocytes were, of course, our lipid vesicle stage, and lipid vesicle or yolk vesicle stage are a little bit larger, they are rounder, they also have conspicuous lipid vesicle deposits within the cytoplasm. But both stage 1 and stage 2 oocytes, if those are the only ones we see, we would classify those females as immature. And then we have stage 3 oocytes. Stage 3 oocytes can be distinguished by the vitelline granules or vitellogenin, and this is a yolk protein that accumulates in stage 3 and stage 4 oocytes. Stage 3 oocytes also have a conspicuous zona radiata, which is an acellular protein covering of the egg, essentially a shell, and they also have a follicle of follicular cells that are nurturing that cell and producing hormones. Now, beyond stage 3 is stage 4, or final oocyte maturation. And oocytes look very different depending on species here, and also whether they are in early or late maturation. Okay, in late maturation, we have cells that have sort of a homogeneous ooplasm, homogeneous yolk protein in there. We have coalescence of lipid vesicles, and the oocyte gets very large. You've probably seen mature or hydrated oocytes like the ones right here if you've ever squeezed a gravid fish. They pop out, they're translucent when they're not fixed, but when we fix them and dehydrate them, they shrink up and make these star-shaped patterns, which are very distinctive So it's very easy to recognize late stage 4 oocytes in histology. And last but not least, we said that there were post-ovulatory follicles. Remember, the follicle was the layer of cells surrounding the egg, and when that follicle ruptures during ovulation, these cells are going to be left behind. If we see an open follicle, that means very, very recent spawning within the last hours or maybe day or two. Whereas if we see a closed follicle like we see here, that would indicate spawning a little bit further along. Either way, the presence of post-ovulatory follicles is indicative of maturation. So we would count those females as mature. All right, so just a reminder, 4 different stages of oocytes, and it's only oocyte stages 3, 4, and post-ovulatory follicle, which are considered mature for the purposes of L50. Get the right tissues. Now we're going to have advice for staging ovaries. Firstly is observe each section at 40 to 100x total magnification. It doesn't matter which one you choose, whichever you're most comfortable about. Most of these features in oocytes are very large, so it's very easy to see them at a lower magnification. More importantly is we want to classify each gonad at least twice. Go through the first time and you'll probably have a hard time deciding which stage it goes into. But if you give yourself a few days and go through them again, it will become more clear over time. The next thing I would like you to realize is that your species ovaries may look very different than the ovaries we have shown in this presentation or in this SOP. For example, the ovary right here on your left is a stage 2 ovary. It contains stage 1 oocytes and stage 2 oocytes, so it would be immature. But the ovary on this side is also a stage 2 ovary. These are stage 1 oocytes. This is a stage 2 oocyte, but it looks very different. The staining properties are different. The length of the oocytes are different, and that's because the fish on this side was a surgeon fish, and the fish on this side was a parrotfish. So there are species level differences. Because there are species level differences, the trap that I would not want you to fall into is just to try to match up pictures of the SOP with the pictures of the gonads from your fish. That will be very discouraging because those pictures oftentimes won't match. Instead, use the criteria describing each of the 4 stages. If you don't like our criteria, then use somebody else's criteria. The point is, those criteria are pretty consistent among different schema for classifying ovaries. Most of us tend to take vitellogenesis as being the onset of maturation for the purposes of estimating L50. So if you have an oocyte and you can see vitelline granules, chances are it's in stage 3 or stage 4. Okay. The next advice is that once you've gone through looking your oocytes once or twice, you want to go back through and make yourself a unique developmental key or map for identifying those oocytes in the future. So if you have a camera, go through and take a bunch of pictures at the same magnification, and you can build yourself one of these sort of developmental maps. We did this a number of times for a recent fish that we worked on that was a lanternfish, and we were able to identify consistent patterns of oocyte development and classify them using the criteria that we've talked about today. So that is extremely helpful. Even if you don't have a camera, consider just drawing them and then having a pictorial key that you can use in the future. Other advice for staging females is, if possible, measure the oocyte diameters of the major stages. Sometimes you may not have a camera, you can use an ocular micrometer, but there's also ImageJ software up there, which is a free software to use. And there's another software that is free that is available with a lot of the digital cameras that is sort of shareware and works very well. You just draw a line across those oocytes once the camera is calibrated, and you can reliably measure the stage 4s from the stage 3s, etc. Now, once you have all this information together, you can then create a comprehensive oocyte development map for your species that can be used each time you evaluate that species. So this is one we created for Diaphis schmidti, and you can see the different stages, stage 1, stage 2, a couple different stage 3s, and then early and late stage 4s. What's even more helpful here is that we have these size ranges and averages for each of those stages because we went through and measured about 50 oocytes per each stage. This is extremely helpful if you have a degraded ovary where you can't make out the anatomy of the follicles themselves, but you can measure the size. That can help you to estimate whether or not that fish is mature. Okay, so now we've talked about ovaries, we've talked about non-gonadal structures. We're going to end up talking now about testes again. Remember that testes are the male gonads, and the gamete here we're looking for is spermatozoa. There are different stages of sperm development, such as spermatocytes, primary spermatocytes, secondary spermatocytes, and spermatogonia, but we really don't care about those. We're just looking for presence or absence of sperm. Okay, so the difference with males is you have to look at two different magnifications. You want to start out working at either 40x or 100x, so low power, and then you want to move up to higher power in order to resolve any sperm that are present. In this case, we don't see any open spaces and we don't see any sperm tails, so we would classify this individual as immature. In mature males, remember they tend to have a lot more wide open spaces in there. They have lumen or cavities within each lobule of the testis, and they also have spermatozoa. Now, at 100x, we can't resolve the heads and tails of the sperm, but we usually can see them at 400x, provided that that section is thin. So we only need a 400x lens in order to be able, or 40x lens in order to be able to resolve those sperm at 400x total magnification. Okay, so we identify males by presence or absence of sperm. Now let's have some advice for making that process as efficient as possible. One is we need to prepare thin sections. A lot of what we're looking for, the sperm heads and tails, are very small, delicate structures, and they're best resolved in very thin sections. Now, if you're doing wax histology, chances are you're sectioning somewhere between 7 to 12 microns, and that should be enough. But if we are doing histology using plastic, you can section anywhere from about a half a micron up to 20 microns. And I can tell you that 15 to 20 microns would be very, very thick and very difficult to resolve the sperm tails in there. It's much easier to see them at a thinner sectioning. Now, the good thing about plastic sections is we usually use an ultramicrotome. And as you're sitting there cutting, you usually can tell whether it's ovary and testis, and you can adjust your sectioning thickness accordingly. Okay, so we said before that we need two different lenses for examining testes of males. We need a 10x lens so we can use 100x total magnification, and we need a 40x lens so we can look at 400x total magnification. Make sure that 40x lens is clear, that it's not foggy when you're looking through it, it hasn't been dragged through oil or anything like that, because having a good 40x lens is the most important part of identifying mature males. That being said, if you have a an oil immersion lens, a 100x lens, you are then able to look at that slide at 1000x. And that's great. It can help to further resolve the tails and the heads of the sperm, but it's not entirely necessary. If you're going to spend extra money, I would say get a decent 40x lens and then spend another $200 and buy yourself a camera and some software. Okay, so advice for staging testis. Many of this advice is going to be similar to the advice we have for staging ovaries. Firstly is classify each gonad at least twice. Go through there, ideally with two different people, and look for the presence and absence of sperm. Okay, if you consistently get the same answer, then you can be confident in that. But if you get two different answers, you need to go back again and determine whether or not sperm are in that section. The next advice I have for you is to look for the wide open spaces. Within testes, we're more likely to find sperm in the wide open spaces, such as in the sperm ducts or what is in the lumen of each lobules. If you look at a testis and you don't see a lot of open space, it's probably unlikely we're going to see a lot of sperm there. But if you do see open space at a low magnification, zoom in there first to look for the sperm, because chances are that's where they are. If you still don't locate them in those hollow spaces, then you want to look at the cortex or the sides of each of those lobules to see if you see any spermatozoa. Next piece of advice applies to people that are only using one dye to stain their tissues. For example, in this SOP, we only use the dye, what dye do we use? Anyway, if you're only using toluidine blue, you're going to get a blue section like this. And so it can make it difficult to have the contrast needed to resolve structures. In this case, because it's plastic, we can actually put a drop of water on there. And that drop of water and then cover slip will increase the scale of contrast. So these are two very similar images, one photograph dry and this one photograph wet. And the wet image, we can see definitively that the heads of the spermatozoa within the lumen are sort of purplish, whereas the nuclei of the surrounding spermatocysts are dark blue. So it makes it easier to resolve sperm from non-sperm. This process also works well for ovaries as well. So here we can see a dry ovary of a parrotfish. These are a vitellogenic oocyte, or stage 4 actually. And if we look at that with a little bit of water, that vitellin becomes more lilac in coloration. It makes it easier to distinguish from the background coloration of, say, stage 1 or stage 2 oocytes. So think about putting some water on that. Okay, last but not least, we're just going to go through a few histological oddities we didn't get to talk about last time. In the 20 years or so that we've been doing histology on gonads, it never fails that we come across something and go, what is that? And we're always finding new things that we still don't understand what they are. But we want to point out a few things that you'll probably commonly see in your gonads or in the fish that you're looking at. First and foremost is something called atresia. So atresia is the natural degeneration of oocytes and their surrounding follicles, and this usually occurs at the end of a spawning season. So here you can see an oocyte. It's a later stage oocyte. It's probably about 200 to 300 microns, and it's going through the process of atresia. So that's natural to happen at the end of a spawning season. You can notice over here that the stage 1 oocytes don't typically go through the same type of atresia. They're typically retained within the ovary until the next spawning season. But if you come across one of these ovaries and you're trying to stage that oocyte, again, that would be very difficult to say exactly which stage it's in. But if you've made some good measurements of oocytes that are easy to identify, you can at least come up with an idea about what stage it is and assign maturity to that oocyte. Another type of oddity that we see within ovaries and testes, but other tissues as well, is something called a melanomacrophage center. Now, these were formerly called yellow bodies, and what they do indicate is inflammation within an organ. Again, they can occur within ovaries or testes or liver or pretty much any organ in the body. But when present within the ovaries, we think they indicate degeneration of previously vitellogenic oocytes. So these could be indicators that this female was mature and then we had atresia and reabsorption of these oocytes at some point. We also see MMCs within ovatestes. Now remember, ovatestes were that sort of combination stage of testicular tissue and ovarian tissue. In here, it's much more controversial, but some people think the presence of these MMCs may, again, indicate the presence of previously vitellogenic oocytes, which are now breaking down. All right, that concludes our presentation right now. I think we're going to go to a break before we go through 3 different pollings to see how accurate you are at classifying gonad sections. Is that correct, Annie?
Hi, Ross. Actually, now is the question session for 10 minutes.
That's what I thought.
Identifying with things. We still have, no, we don't have a bio break now. So, okay, Bapak Ibu, sekarang tiba kita pada seksi bertanya. Saya akan memilih orang yang angkat tangan. Pertama, Pak Filipus Musyeri. Filipus Musyeri, silahkan bertanya, Pak. Tolong di unmute mikrofon. Pak Filipus Musyeri. Oke, saya ganti. Ibu Yasmina Asih. Silahkan Ibu Yasmina Asih. Ibu Yasmina. Okay, so Yeah, so actually the people that we, oh, now we have another person. Denny Suhernawan, silakan.
Yes, thank you. Do you hear me? Yep. I'm Danny from
Yeah.
Udayana University. I would like to ask to the presenter, what is the specific characters of MMC? Thank you.
That is a good question. What the specific characteristics is. One is they're melanistic. They have macrophages in there, why we call them MMCs. And again, we think they're indicating inflammation. I first learned about identifying them correctly when speaking to a histopathologist, which I am not. So I can't give you more than that, but I know in fish from the papers that I read, they show up periodically in liver and ovary. We think they're areas where there's some inflammation or reabsorption of tissue going on, but there's various reasons why they could occur, not just reabsorption of oocytes.
Sudah jelas Pak Denny?
Yeah, thank you, Bu.
Oke. Berikutnya Ibu Husna. Silakan, Bu.
Ya, selamat pagi Ibu Eri.
Selamat pagi.
Mengenai perbedaan antara yang rotten gonad dan yang fresh gonad secara histologi.
I'm sorry?
Bisa diulang pertanyaannya, Bu? Ibu Husna? I think if I got it right, she was asking the...
Yes.
Yes,
if
okay.
possible, you can give us the picture of the rotten and then the fresh gonad.
Okay.
Yeah, we will upload this PowerPoint to the website, the La Lima website. The one from the other night is there already. So yeah, I will upload this PowerPoint with those pictures after the presentation is done.
Okay, so barangkali Ibu Yasmina Asih, masih bisa Ibu? Ibu Yasmina?
No, thanks.
Okay, so I think since we still have time, I'm going to read this question in the box, Ross. So from Ibu Tri Ernawati, she was asking regarding the budget limitation. So how many samples minimal should we take in every period of data for data collection? And the second one, if we have a case when observed an ovary sample, for example, it found out that around 60% is stage 2 and 40% is stage 3. So how we should define this stage? From Tri Ernawati.
Okay, let me answer that question backwards. So for the ovary that is 60% stage 2 and 40% stage 3, for the purposes of L50, we just care if there's any stage 3s. So we just classify that as mature for the purpose of L50. Now, if you're trying to get a spawning index, there's different ways to do the percentages there. And that's not what we're here to do today, but for the purposes of L50, we go by the latest stage oocyte. So that stage 3 containing ovary would be considered mature. As for the number of samples, I'm going to pass that on to Eric Franklin or Ken to answer.
Thanks, Ross. So the number of samples really depend on what your study questions are and the size, the maximum size of your study species. So the bigger the fish, the more specimens that you're going to want to collect. And often what we'll do is we'll break them down into 1 or 2 centimeter bins. And typically when you're collecting in the field, you'll have a range where you'll know that there's a maximum length that's attainable, but often it's difficult to sample that size, but you want to get as big fish as possible and as small a fish as possible. Because what you're trying to do for an estimation of size and maturity is have specimens that are both immature and mature. So they're on both sides of that L50 curve. They allow you to anchor the point at which half of that size is going to be mature. And the smaller you get, the closer you get to kind of a 0 length, they're going to get less and less mature. They're going to get more mature proportionally. And the other way, they're going to get more and more mature. But again, it really relates to the size of your fish, the total maximum size. The other reason I said that it depends on your study purpose is that often if you're interested in spawning periodicity, you may not want to just focus on the peak spawning time. You may want to be collecting specimens throughout the year. And so that would then require you to be sampling often at least, a few times a month. And then if you also are interested in things like lunar periodicity, so the relationship with spawning and the moon phase, you would have to be aware of whether you're sampling on the new moon or the full moon, in addition to sampling, say, every month throughout the year.
Okay, thank you. So the next question, we still have time, about the stage of atresia from Priyo Susatyo, Universitas Sudirman. Priyo asks, can atresia occur at stage 1, 2, or also at mature stage?
I'll let Ken chime in here. My understanding that atresia mainly happens in stage 3 and beyond oocytes. Ken, is that your experience?
I think that's what we've experienced so far. And a lot of times, because we think that, especially if you're seeing those stage 1 oocytes mixed in with stage 3 and stage 4, we suspect or expect that those earlier stage oocytes are the ones that are going to be developing later on. And then perhaps the ones that are atretic were the ones that may have been around but didn't get spawned.
Okay, so I'm going to ask Agung Abadi to ask his question live. Pak Agung, silahkan Pak.
Oke, terima kasih atas kesempatan yang diberikan Ibu. Jadi yang saya tanyakan adalah di beberapa jenis ikan gapi atau ikan hias gapi itu adalah mereka beranak. Jadi bagaimana cara kita menduga bahwasanya tingkat kematangan gonadnya itu 1, 2, 3, dan 4 sampai akhirnya dia melahirkan atau beranak. Terima kasih.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that for me?
Bisa diulang Pak Agung?
Jadi pada beberapa spesies ikan, contohnya ikan gapi, mereka ini kan melahirkan. Nah, bagaimana cara kita menduga bahwasanya dia ini stage gonadnya 1, 2, 3, dan 4? Itu saja, Bu.
Okay. I think this is for oviviparous fish like guppy.
Okay, so what is the question?
How to determine the stage of the, the fish, the specimen 1, 2, 3, or 4, if the fish like delivering the babies instead of like spawning?
That is a good question. I've never. Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that question. We haven't really worked with ovoviviparous fish.
Okay.
And I'm going to chime in there too, and Annie, and apologize to the participant and give the same exact answer that Ross did, that we've never worked with that type of group, so we have no experience and cannot answer that question.
Okay. Great. So mungkin itu ya Pak Agung jawabannya. Now we are in the polling session. Ross, you lead the session for the gonad images poll and discussion.
Okay, so let me switch over my camera real quick. And give me just a second. Okay, so for this round of 10 questions, we're going to look at 10 different female gonads, and you're simply going to rank them based on the latest stage oocyte present. We had some good questions in the last round asking about how to estimate the proportion of oocytes that are at one stage or another. But for the purposes of estimating L50, we really just care about the latest stage, even if there's only a few of those. So for these ovaries, just estimate for me the latest stage of oocyte that's present within that ovary. So Dindy, can we start the first poll, please? Okay, I'm just going to move that over a little bit. So you have to fill out this whole chart as I scroll through the pictures and then press enter at the end. Okay, so this is ovary number 1. Okay, going on to ovary number 2. Up next, we have number 3. So you can just scroll down in that quiz box until you get to the appropriate question. Okay, on to question 4. So Dr. Ken asked me to include some slides that aren't as pretty as the ones that we had the other night, but these are sort of more typical of what we generate and what our students generate working in some of the fisheries management areas that are fairly remote. So do your best to identify that ovary to the latest stage visible. Okay, now let's go on to ovary number 5. Same question, sit there and classify that ovary to the latest stage possible. Okay, moving on to ovary number 6. And now to ovary number 7. Okay, moving on to ovary number 8. And then ovary number 9. And finally, let's move on to ovary 10.
Huh? Apa?
All right, go ahead and click in your final answers and then submit your answers. And in about 10 seconds, Dindy, if you could close the poll and then show us the results. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to the first question. And Ken, if you could read the results like we did the other night, that would be great.
Sure thing.
Let me move this out of the way. So what was the most frequent response for polling question number 1?
Stage 4.
Stage 4. So yeah, I see we have a pretty even distribution. These larger oocytes are stage 4. Again, with the plastic, we don't have the benefit of using a counterstain like eosin, but these are our stage 1 oocytes for comparison. Usually they're around 50 microns or so, but you can look and see how much larger this is. And you can see that it has yolk granules in there that are coalescing. We have lipid vesicles that are coalescing. So definitely going to be a stage 4 there. Stage 4 is going to be close to final maturation. There'll be kind of a 4A or an early 4, we would say. Okay, question number 2. What was the most frequently chosen answer?
Over half of the people said that it was stage 1.
Excellent, that's very good. So again, I would probably want to use a higher magnification just to be sure, but all these oocytes are dark, they're angular. I can't really make out the nucleus very much, but I don't see any oil droplets. But even if you confuse a stage 1 for a 2, both of those oocytes would be ranked as immature for calculating our L50. So making a mistake between 1 and 2 is not a very bad mistake. But I agree that these are all stage 1 primary growth. Okay, question 3. What did people choose?
Just about half chose stage 3.
Okay, so stage 3 is correct. Now this is hard because it's all very dark and it's all very blue. The reason it's dark and you can't make out the granules is this is a pretty thick section. It's also a section where we probably used a little too much dye on there. But again, go back to your first oocytes. These are stage 1s, okay? Over here, this is a stage 2. You can see some of the oil droplets or lipid vesicles. And here is a stage 3. You see it has maybe a zona radiata. It's hard to see at that magnification. Here are the oil droplets, and then everything in the middle here are yolk granules or vitelline granules. So again, normally you'll have the benefit of a microscope and you can zoom in and out to identify these structures. It's not the same as just looking at a picture, but stage 3 is the best answer here. Okay, for question 4, what did people choose?
Most people chose stage 2.
I agree with that. So if you look out here, many of the oocytes are stage 1s, but every so often you see a bigger one, like right here, that has this ring of oil droplets. That would indicate a stage 2 right there. So there's one there and one there. Whoops. So for the purposes of L50, we just care about the latest stage present for indicating maturity. So it's more of a presence absence rather than, what proportion of the ovary is stage 1 or stage 2. So we have a stage 2 oocyte and we're mainly stage 1, but we would still rank that female as immature. Okay, what about question number 5? What did people choose?
Nearly half of the people chose stage 1.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I had to go look at the picture. So this is a parrotfish ovary. I'm always looking to the bigger ones to see if I see oil droplets, but I don't see them there. So I agree. These all look like stage 1 oocytes, so primary growth. Because they're parrotfish, or this species of parrotfish anyway, they're more elliptical than what we're used to, but they're still stage 1 or primary growth oocytes. Okay, for question 6, what did we choose?
This was very close between 3 and 4, but most people chose stage 4.
Okay, yeah, let me look a little bit closer at there. I would lean more towards a stage 3 on this one. Again, you're very right in that these developmental stages are not discrete stages. One leads to the other, leads to the other. So you can find things that are in between. First of all, we'll see our 1s. These are all 1s. There's a 2 down there. And then these larger oocytes, if we're looking at them, they have a nice zona radiata on there. And they're probably, let's see, around 300 microns or so. Just using one of these for scale is 50 microns. We can calculate how big it is. But I don't see the size increase, and I don't see the complete or almost complete coalescence of vitelline there. So yeah, I'm sorry, I would still rank that as a stage 3. Okay, how about question number 7? What do we choose?
This was another close call between 3 and 4, but most people chose 4.
Okay. Once again, I'm sort of on the size of being more conservative, that I'm going to rank these as 3s. Now, again, for the purposes of L50, you making a choice of 4 and me choosing 3 would not make any difference to that curve, because both of those would be considered mature ovaries. But again, for reference there, this is stage 1. This here, actually, let me get closer. That is an early 3. So you can see the oil droplets, and you can start to see the vitelline accruing right here. So that's an early 3, and these are definitely late 3s. And that one might be transitioning to a 4, but I have to have the cutoff somewhere, right? So I would still consider that a 3. Okay, question number 8. What did people choose?
Most people chose stage 4.
Okay, this one, again, is probably stage 3. So it sounds like we're being a little bit too ambitious on assigning stage 4. We can still see the central germinal vesicle there. We see yolk granules there. The difference is this section is more typical of the ones that our students will generate. It has nicks in it, it has cuts, it has scratches where the knife was scratched, but you can still extract that information. So these are vitellogenic oocytes. They're stage 3. They have oil droplets, they have visible yolk granules, and the yolk granules are of a homogeneous size, which would make me say stage 3. Okay, question number 9. What did people choose?
Most people chose stage 1.
Stage 1 is what I would choose. Again, I want to zoom in a little bit more to make sure there were no 2s in there. But again, if you make a choice between a 1 and a 2, it doesn't make a difference for L50. So they're all dark angular oocytes. We would call this this ovary immature or inactive since we don't see any stage 3s. Okay, and so question number 10, what did people choose?
The overwhelming majority said stage 4.
Excellent. So I agree with you here. So here you can say coalescence of the yolk protein in there. We can see also irregular borders. It's maybe pulling away from the follicle. The other thing is this ovary is probably a little bit rotten. It's hard to tell, or it might be going through some atresia. But if you look in comparison to the size of a stage 1 over there, and these are more homogeneous and uniform than the stage 3s. We don't see granules, we just see like this sheet vitelline. That leads me to classifying it as stage 4. So I would agree with that. That would be an early 4. All right, so now that we have basically completed one poll, I believe, are we going on to the next poll, Annie, or are we taking a break?
Forgot to unmute. It's 9:57 and we still have time before the break. Please go with the next polling.
Oh, okay, let's go to the next poll then. So we'll close that poll off and let's go on to the next poll. Okay, so poll 1, question 10. Poll 2. Now for poll 2, you are going to identify, classify these histological sections as immature male, immature female, ovotestis, or not gonad. So here is question number 1. Okay, if we're ready, let's go on to question number 2. Okay, moving on to question 3. Once again, you can drag down in this menu so that you can answer all 10 questions before you hit submit. Okay, moving on to question 4. And as I was saying earlier, some of these are the more typical sections for what we get for the type of histology we do. So they require a little bit more detective work to identify mature versus immature. Okay, moving on to question 5. And now let's move on to question 6. So Annie, should we restart the poll? You said only one person joined the poll?
Yes, Dandy said that the internet connection is a bit slow.
So we should restart?
To give people an opportunity to look at the images.
Oh, absolutely. So I will go back to question number 1. And Dindy, can you tell me when to switch, or should I just use my own judgment? So this is question number 1. Okay, I'll move on to question 2. So I'm going to give about 30 seconds for each one. So we'll do a few more seconds, and then we'll move to the next one. Okay, question 3. Question 4. Okay, question 5. Question 6. Question 7. Question 8. Question number 9. Okay, and question number 10. Okay, Dindy, can you go ahead and close that poll out and show us the results, and we'll go back through the questions and talk about the answers. Okay, Ken, can you tell us the answer for the first sample there?
Yes, most people chose not gonad.
Okay, that's correct. So this is definitely not gonad. This is actually liver tissue, right? We have that big central canal. We have these sinusoids coming off here. So if you've ever looked at human liver and fish liver, it looks kind of similar. You know, at first you see a lot of dark staining things and think testis, but it has these regular sort of sinusoids in there that indicates that that's liver and not gonad. Okay, for number 2, what did we choose?
76% said immature female.
Immature female is correct. Yeah, all I can see here are stage 1 oocytes. I could zoom in to make sure that I don't see any stage 2, but either way, with stage 1 or stage 2, it would be considered immature female. So that's absolutely correct. Very good. Question number 3, what did we choose?
Most people chose mature female.
Mature female is correct, right? So mature female, we know that those probably stage 3. I have to go take a look. So this one on this side has uniform shaped vitelline granules, so definitely stage 3. This one on that size, the granules are getting conglomerated, so it's going to a stage 4, but it doesn't matter whether we classify it or 3 or 4 here. Both of those are considered mature for purposes of L50. So indeed, this is ovary of mature female. Okay, for number 4, what did they choose?
Most people chose mature male.
Mature male is correct. And this is a difficult one. It's a thick section, a little too thick for my tastes. But if we look at these lobules here and look at the gray versus the purple, the gray down here are the tails of the sperm. So we see gray there, gray there. Again, this photo looks like it was taken at 100x. And if we zoomed in using our 40x lens to 400 times, we would then be able to see very clearly that the tails are right there. But when we have a lot of tails together, they look like a gray smudge. So watch for the gray smudge and you will find the sperm. Okay, question 5. What did we choose?
87% of the people said it was not gonad.
Not gonad is correct, right? You can tell there's a lot of tearing and shredding in there. And the reason there's a lot of tearing and shredding is because this is adipose tissue. That was that fat body that we'd see as surgeon fishes. And it looks like it has some central, maybe muscle tissue and other tissue too. But this was a fat body. And so it's not gonad. And so we would not use that to determine the sex. Okay, question 4, what did we choose?
I think you went backwards. Yeah.
Okay, I was like, that's the same one. Question 6, what did we choose?
Most people chose mature male.
Okay, yeah, so this is definitely a testis. I do not see sperm with tails. I'm looking here, let me get closer. Maybe I missed something. Nope, pretty sure that this is an immature male. We see these really tight spermatocysts that contain spermatocytes, different stages of development, but we don't see tails. Even though I think this is a lanternfish, we would still see the commas in spermatozoa, and I don't see those. So this I would rank as an immature male. Okay, what about number 7? What did we choose?
Most people said it was ovotestis.
That is a very difficult one. Yeah, so ovotestis, you're looking at this stuff right here. We've got these oocytes. This is a primary oocyte. This is a secondary oocyte. This right here is a blood vessel. So that's an artery right there. This is a vein. So I would rank this as an immature female, not as an ovotestis. It looks very much like it could be an ovotestis based on the little dots, being part of the spermatogenic tissue, but I don't think it is. I would call that artery and vein. Okay, question 8. What did we call this?
88% of the people said it was not gonad.
Not gonad is correct. This is actually skeletal muscle fibers, skeletal muscle tissue. So this is just body wall, and it looks like there was bone or spine or something in there. So not gonad. We would not rank that as either mature or immature. Okay, question number 9. What do we call it?
Most people said mature female.
Mature female is correct. If you take a look at the oocytes we see, they're mainly stage 1 and stage 2s, maybe stage 3s, but the thing that makes it definitive of mature female is the presence of these post-ovulatory follicles. So even though we may not be able to see a vitellogenic oocyte right now, we know that there were some in the past because these follicles only ovulate once we have a mature oocyte. Okay, final question 10. What did we choose?
And most people said immature female.
I would agree. So immature female, we've got all these stage 1 oocytes. They don't have zona radiata. We don't have yolk granules. So stage 1, and we would call that immature female. All right, excellent. Okay, do we move straight on to the next poll or do we take a break?
You can move to the next poll.
Okay.
Or if you
Then
prefer
let's
to take a break, that should be okay as well, because we still have about like 30 minutes, 28 minutes before the break actually. And after the break, we'll have another test attempt.
Okay, so let's do the last poll then. So Dendi, if you could start the final poll. And this is the same as before. We're going to give you about 40 seconds on each slide. Just rank it as one of the 5 or 6 choices. So this is choice number 1. Moving on to choice 2. This is question 2. Okay, moving on to question 3. Why are we looking at Ken? Dendi, can we switch the attendees view to the slides? Okay, I'll go on to question 4. Okay, question 5. Ah, there we go.
Rosanetti, can we ask, do we need to restart the poll? I'm not sure if everyone actually saw those questions.
Fine by me.
Yeah. Okay, let me start back over again. So those of you that answered, just hang on to your answers. And we'll start back at number 1. Okay, so this is question number 1. Okay, moving on to question 2. Okay, moving to question 3. Okay, question 4. Sorry, question 4. Okay, question 5. Okay, question 6. All right, question 7. Question 8. question 9. Okay, and question 10. Okay, Dindy, can you close out the poll, please, and then post the results?
We have answers still coming in, Ross.
Oh, the results are still showing?
Yeah, he said, please give it a few seconds.
Gotcha.
More results are coming.
Gotcha. Okay, so let me move back to the first question. Okay, question number 1. What was the most frequently chosen answer?
51% of the people said it was mature male.
I agree, mature male. The tails are hard to make out, but they are there. So these are the heads of the sperm. They're sitting within one of those lobules. Tails are right here. It's not great focus, but we can see tails right here as well. Again, it's easier with a microscope where you can focus in and out, because realize the tails and the heads are not necessarily in the same focal plane, but definitely a mature male. Question 2, what did people choose?
80% said mature female.
Excellent, mature female. And so let's go through the oocyte stages here. So right here is a stage 1, and then probably, I don't see stage 2 per se, definitely stage 3 in here. Okay, big stage 3, lots of yolk granules, zona radiata there, and here is a late stage 4. You can see that it took up a huge space, but that it shrunk down during the ethanol soaking for the infiltration or dehydration, and that created this sort of irregular shaped cell. But you can see that it was very, very big. So that would be a stage 4, late stage 4. So either way, this is definitely a mature ovary. Question 3, what was the most frequent choice?
Most people said not gonad.
Okay, so that one is hard, but it's actually, we would call it an ovotestis. If you can see right here, this is a stage 1 oocytes. They're small. This is one of those MMCs or yellow bodies. And if you zoom in, which you can't right with a picture, you could see spermatogonia, gonial tissue in there. So when we classified this, we called it an ovotestis. Right, number 4, it's very dark, but what did people choose?
Immature male.
Immature male is what I would choose too, right? We can see that we have the lobules there, and the lobules or tubules are the functional unit of the testis. We can see there's a little bit of lumen visible, but we can't really see any spermatozoa. In part, it's a very dark section and be very difficult anyway, but immature male is the best choice and the choice I think we made when we classified it. Okay, number 5, what did people choose?
Most people said mature male.
I agree. So mature male, once again, we have those lobules down here, and the inside of that lobule, you can see the spermatozoa within that lumen, which is the hollow place, over in here as well. So these are spermatocysts, or clumps of spermatogenic tissue Ones with a big nuclei are less mature than the ones with a smaller nuclei. And the nuclei in here themselves are very, very small. So these are the heads of spermatozoa. So this is a mature male. Okay, question 6, what did they choose?
Not gonad.
So for question 6, I think we would call this an immature male, right? So we do have these septa of connective tissue in here, in between the actual area where the lobule is, and there's spermatogenic tissue in that lobule, but it's not very identifiable as spermatocysts or spermatocytes or anything like that. So we would call this an inactive or immature male. Number 7, what did we choose?
Mature female.
Okay, so mature female, let me take a look at the slide once more. I think you might be right. I didn't memorize all of these. It's hard, but you got stage 1s here, probably stage 2s. This looks like an early stage 3 to me. So you can see the white oil droplets, and then on the periphery of that, you may see some vitelline droplets as well. So once we see vitelline or vitellogenin, that is the indicator that we're going to classify that ovary as a mature ovary. Again, if I had a microscope, I would zoom in on that oocyte to see, but based on this observation at this magnification, my guess is that you are correct, and that would be a vitellogenic oocyte, so we would call this mature. Okay, question 8, what did we choose?
Mature female.
Mature female is definitely correct. Again, for comparison, we have our stage 1s in here, and then probably that's a stage 2, maybe. It's hard to tell for this magnification. Definitely out here, that's probably a stage 3. These big ones are stage 4s, and so they also look a little jagged. In this case, if I look at the material in between the actual oocytes, I'm wondering if this ovary is a little bit rotten. But that being said, just looking at absolute size, looking at the presence of the zona radiata, we know that we're at vitellogenesis or beyond. So I would call this mature as well. Question 9, what did we choose?
Immature female.
Immature female, yeah. Mostly you see stage 1 oocytes over there. This one I would look at closer to see if it's a stage 2. It looks like it might be a stage 2. But either way, I don't see any stage 3s in here. Nothing with yolk granules or globules, no shell or zona radiata. So I would classify this as an immature female. All right, and finally, question 10. What did people choose?
Bettina Dewasa. Mature female.
Dewasa. So yeah, definitely a mature female. This is a beautiful ovary. Some of them look like art. Many of them do not. This is stained with hematoxylin and eosin. We've got our stage 1s there, probably going to a 2 over there. These are definitely 3s over here. So nice visible nucleus in there, nice visible zona radiata, lots of yolk granules or vitelline globules right there. So definitely a mature female and a very nice ovary. Okay, with that, I think we go to a break, or do we have time for questions, Eddie?
We will have a long time for question after the break. Do you want to have a question now? Because I think we are a bit early. We are like 8 minutes early.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. So maybe we take a break, yeah? It's been quite a while since in the morning. Let's take a break, everyone. Bapak Ibu, kita bio break dulu ya. Kurang lebih 5 menit, kita akan kembali lagi nanti setelah ini. Terima kasih. Selamat siang Bapak Ibu, teman-teman semuanya. Kita kembali lagi dari bio break. Berikutnya kita akan melakukan question live dan juga test attempts yang akan di leading oleh Pak Ros. Pak Ros?
Sorry, Annie. Oh, go ahead, Ross.
No, Ken, go ahead. I think you're up.
Okay, so Annie, while we were on break, Ross asked me to take over here with the quiz attempt. So I'll just explain what's going on.
Okay.
So hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us again today. I'm very happy to be be able to come back and speak with you again. We thought it would be nice if we allotted a little bit of time for people to take the exam to get the first certificate. So what we will do is just everybody take a break, and you can go onto La Lima and make your exam attempts. And we will be standing by to answer any questions that may arise, either as a result of any of the past presentations or for any questions you may have about the exam itself. And Annie, if I'm correct, we have about, was it 1 hour scheduled to allow people to take the exam?
Yes, 1 hour exactly.
Okay, so we're going to allow 1 hour to take the exam, and then let me remind you where to find the exam. So if you go into La Lima, and you should have received login instructions before. I apologize. I know some people had some difficulty. I went back and tried to check whether I could just send a login link, but I do not have that capability. So you need to have had that original login instruction. Once you've logged in, you can't get back to the login page because La Lima recognizes you. So hopefully you've gotten the histology training site loaded up, and then you would just go to assignments, tests, and surveys. And in my case, I've taken it once, so I could try again. And let's give you some time to take the exam, and we'll be standing by for questions.
Or perhaps, they can also type the question in the box, right, Ken?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, somebody is asking, what is the website? It's a La Lima page, right?
It's the La Lima page. So you would have to have the invitation from La Lima, which was sent out the first day, and click on that link.
Ken, there is a question on password, user and password in the box.
I'm typing right now. Thank you. So there was a question, maybe I can read it to everybody in case other people are having difficulty. The question was, what is my username and password? The username is whatever email you provided to us to register for this workshop. And the password is whatever you decide that it's going to be. So that's up to you. I've received several questions in the typed question and answer section about how best to classify an ovary if somebody sees stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and stage 4 all present. And the answer is that we always classify the ovary by the most advanced oocyte present. So if you see stage 3 or stage 4 in combination with 1s and 2s and 3s and all that, you would say that it was mature. If you saw stage 1s and stage 2s together, it would be immature. If you only saw stage 1, of course, it would be immature. But the point is that you can see all those stages together, but you assign maturity status based on the most advanced stage.
Ken, there are a couple of persons have problem getting into Laulima, or maybe you have answered.
I'm sorry, Annie, but I may not. The best I can say is to use the email and the email attachment that they received from Denny for instructions. Unfortunately, because I've already done the example login, I can't go back through the process again because Laulima won't allow me to do that.
Okay, maybe, I don't know. I can share screen from here. Do you think it's worth it if I share screen that attachment? Oh, sorry, that's another laptop. Maybe Dandy can do it. Mas Dandy, bisa tolong di share screen yang attachment log on itu?
Give me a minute.
Thank you. Oke, Bapak Ibu bisa lihat di screen sekarang sudah di-share arahan instruksi cara login ke portal Laulima. Jadi Bapak Ibu yang dulu daftar melalui portal GForm sebelumnya menerima email dari Laulima dari University of Hawaii dengan subjek email yang berjudul Welcome to Laulima dari postmaster@laulima.hawaii.edu. Nah, di situ Dandy bisa turun ke bawah dikit. Di situ ada instruksi di attachment yang kami kirim ke masing-masing email Bapak Ibu ya. Di situ ada instruksi bagaimana caranya login ke portal Laulima. Jadi setelah terima email itu, nah terus dibuka, di situ ada link ya, accept this invitation. Nah, itulah diklik. Ya, itu yang diklik di dalam email yang berjudul Welcome to Laulima. Sudah jelas ya. Nah, berikutnya Mas Dendi, tolong turun lagi. Nah, setelah Bapak Ibu mengklik tadi linknya, maka secara otomatis itu akan teractivate account baru yang akan Ibu Bapak buat, create dengan nama Anda yang Anda mau tulis nanti di sertifikat. Karena kalau nama ditulisnya pakai angka-angka nanti itu akan juga yang keluar di sertifikat. Jadi nama yang memang benar-benar mau ditulis di sertifikat. Tulis juga password, terserah pilih password, lalu klik tombol activate your new account and log in. Nah, once itu udah diklik, setelah itu diklik, maka berikutnya, Mas Dendi, tolong. Ups. Ya, di situ ada bintang di sebelah Win Histology Training telah berubah warna menjadi kuning. Nah, klik tab Organize Favorite. Itu yang ada dikasih tanda panah merah. Nah, itu ya. Nah, begitu Organize Favorite. Jadi tadi setelah ngisi email, apa tuh nama, password, ketika diklik, dibuatlah akun Bapak Ibu, di-create, lalu langsung portal itu akan mengajak Bapak Ibu langsung ke sini. Nah, itu diklik ya, tab Organize Favorite yang ditunjuk oleh panah merah. Oke, berikutnya Mas Dendi. Berikutnya, kok itu terlalu ke bawah. Naik lagi Mas. Mana tadi? Berikutnya, next apa sebelumnya kali ya? Tadi habis klik organize sudah, habis organize nih berikutnya ini turun ke bawah lagi Mas. Ini udah tadi, terus ini udah ya, berikutnya Mas, halaman 3. Oh, ini halaman 4. Nah, ini udah klik bintang. Berikut terlalu besar kali ya. Oke, ini ya. Nah, setelah diklik yang tadi organize, maka tab Win Histology Training akan muncul di bagian atas Lau 5 seperti yang ditunjuk oleh panah merah itu ya. Di situ ya Bapak Ibu Win Histology Training. Nah, manakala Bapak Ibu mengklik itu barulah terlihat akses untuk mendapatkan materi-materi training ini. Ya. Terus Mas Dendi? Oke, yang berikutnya, halaman berikutnya, ini ada semua di dokumen yang di-attach di email ya Bapak Ibu. Oh, udah nggak ada lagi? Di atas kisi-kisi jawaban ujian yang mana? Sebelahnya lagi? Yang sebelah kanan Mas Dendi, tadi ada gambar ya sebelah kanan. Nah itu. Nah, oke. Nah, kemudian setelah itu bisa diklik tab resources, resources yang ditunjuk oleh panah hitam untuk akses ya ke bahan-bahan training ini. Jadi ada SOP, histology, terus kemudian nanti juga PowerPoint dari para instruktur akan diupload ke situ. Apalagi Mas Dendi setelah ini? Klik tab, itu ada bisa klik tab assignment, test, and survey untuk mengakses ujian modul 1. Jadi di sini ya Bapak Ibu untuk bisa mengakses dokumen-dokumen materi training dan juga untuk ikut ujian atau tes histology based rapid reproductive analysis for tropical fishes ini. What do you think, Ken?
I'm sorry, I was answering questions, Annie.
Oh, okay. So, ya banyak yang bertanya tentang sudah mendaftar di website Lau 5 tapi tidak bisa mengakses. Bisa jadi mungkin internet connection. Nah, itu dia Bapak Ibu, step by step instruksi atau arahan bagaimana cara menglogin masuk ke portal Lau 5. Mungkin bisa dilihat dulu dokumen yang kami lampirkan di email yang kami kirim mungkin minggu lalu ya Mas Dendi ya, ke setiap peserta yang mendaftar, ke email yang didaftarkan ya tentunya. Ken, probably some participants just joined today, and probably some of them haven't received an invitation from Lau 5, most probably. Tapi Bapak Ibu jangan khawatir kalau mungkin peserta yang baru bergabung hari ini dan belum mendapatkan undangan dari Lau 5, ujian atau exam dari training ini masih terus bisa diakses sampai tanggal 16 Desember 2021. Jadi Bapak Ibu bisa terus bisa mengakses portal itu untuk mengikuti ujian sebanyak yang Bapak Ibu inginkan, as many times as you want, sampai bisa mendapatkan skor yang diinginkan untuk mendapatkan sertifikat, ya, yaitu 90%. Oke. Ini ada juga pertanyaan dari anonymous attendee. Saya sudah buka web Lau 5, tapi tidak ketemu daftar pertanyaan. Bapak Ibu tolong lagi ya Pak ya, baca instruksi arahan yang kami kirim melalui attachment di email. Di situ ada step by step instruksi bagaimana caranya masuk dan mengakses materi maupun untuk mengikuti ujian.
And Dendi, are there any other email addresses that I should have entered into Laulima that we've received? I can work on that now.
Okay, Dendi. So for example, ini Ibu Husna bisa tolong kirim ketik emailnya di box, and I will copy and paste on the chat for you, Ken. Ibu Husna bisa tolong kirim emailnya di box. Juga Ibu Depi Rumampuk.
I think it's better for everyone who hasn't received the invitation email from Laulima to just type in the question box their email address right now, so that can invite.
Okay, I can do that. And while we're waiting for those questions to come in, I have somebody asked that they've finished the test and passed. Where can they get their certificate? So I'm going to go onto Laulima right now and show where that's at.
They should get an emailed copy. Is that not right, Ken?
Yeah. I thought that I'd set it up that way, and then I couldn't find the button to do it again. So I apologize. I think that was my fault. If you go into assignments, tests, and surveys, it'll show you your, I think, the highest score. Go over here and click on review, and then scroll down, and at the bottom of the instructions, there's a link to, whoops, is my head in the way? At the bottom of the instructions, there's a link to view the certificate. So click on that.
So apparently Zoom doesn't allow me to copy and paste, so I have to retype one by one. Sorry.
Annie, is it possible for, is that in an Excel spreadsheet anywhere? I could just copy and paste everything and throw it in very easily. I'm afraid of making mistakes as we're doing as it's going back and forth, and there's going to be transcriptional errors.
It's allowing you to copy. The address it'll allow you to copy.
You're copying in? Okay.
Yeah. I can't do that, Ken, because the file is in my other laptop.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Where am I looking for the addresses?
In the chat box from to all panelists.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Bapak Ibu tolong ketik alamat email ya di Q&A box. Oke, ini ada
Okay, I'm going to try to address that now. So maybe any sort of spoken questions or untyped questions that come in, you guys can handle.
Yeah, I can. I'm handling those as they come in.
Thank you.
And if I may add, Ken, please make sure that everyone's email is live and active, and that you type in the correct email address, because there are so many typos in your email address that makes the email bounce back.
Exactly. Tolong ya Bapak Ibu, akun email yang diberikan ke kami adalah akun email yang masih aktif ya. Karena cukup banyak, ada sampai 100-an email yang bouncing balik ke kami mental. Bisa jadi mungkin tidak aktif, atau typo yang harusnya AC jadi IC, atau ID jadi IC gitu ya. Tolong ya. Terima kasih.
Annie, I see email addresses coming into the Q&A, so I'm gonna copy directly from there as well.
Okay.
Yeah, Ken, I'm trying to do that too. It's having a hard time. Should we create a Google Meet or a Google form and have people just drop it there somewhere?
Dandy can do that. Dandy.
Say again, Ross.
Well, I don't know. I'm having a difficult time copying addresses in the chat box. I don't know if it's easier on your end, Ken, but it seems to be hit or miss.
Yeah, I'm retyping.
Yeah, I'm doing okay so far.
Okay. If you're doing okay, then.
Yeah, I think I'm retyping. That's okay. This is weird. Some of the email address I remember, we send email to.
I'm gonna help to answer some of the questions in the Q&A box, if I may.
That'd be great, Dendi. Thank you.
Ya masa 07 Shelly gmail.com. Shelly Mangin. Jawadi ke lautan @gmail.com. Oh iya, Mak. Oke, tadi mana lagi?
Hey, Ken.
Yeah.
There is a question right now in the chat box that's asking where the participant can get their certificate. They've already passed the exam. Do you have that window available to share?
I just did that, and I think that's the question that I just tried to answer. I can do it again in just a little while.
Okay, thanks.
So we had another attendee just ask about a Google Sheet to put email addresses in, but if it's going fast enough with you, Ken. Oh, there's, yeah. The chat is a lot easier than copying them out of the Q&A.
So I need to share this with everybody. Lalima won't allow me to add names that are already on the site. So I have a very large list here of names that I just tried to enter, and Lalima gave me an error. So if people can look, I don't know how well they can see. If your name is up here, it means that I've already listed you as a participant. You should already have received an invitation. And basically, because Lalima says you're already in there, I don't have the ability to issue you another invitation.
Okay.
If your name is here, I suggest you check in your junk mail or trash mail or something like that. Oops, let me close this out. So I was only, out of all those names we've just been entering, I've only been successful at adding 5 people. All the other names apparently are in, or all the other email addresses are already in the Laulima system.
Oke. Jadi Bapak Ibu, kalau misalnya sudah pernah menerima email dari Laulima sebelumnya, maka kami tidak bisa mendaftar ulang atau menginvite ulang alamat email yang sama. Jadi karena udah pernah dikirim, sistem Laulima sudah mendeteksi bahwa email itu sudah pernah dikirim. Jadi tolong Bapak Ibu cek ya spam folder atau apa ya, pokoknya dicek semuanya dengan bisa di search dengan subjek email welcome to Laulima pakai tanda seru.
And then I had a couple of questions about where to find the certificate if you've passed the certificate, or where to find the exam. Again, this was reviewed last week towards the end. So, I guess you'd have to get on Lally. Or Annie, have we launched the recording yet?
Sorry?
Is the recording of the last session been released yet?
No, not yet. Not yet. We are planning to actually release it all at once, 4 sessions. Why is it? Do you want each session to...
So some people are asking where to find the exam. So I'm going to go through it right now, but if people continue to need to know where the exam is, they might need that first session to understand how to get into Laulima and where to find the exam.
Okay.
So here I'm going through to show where the exam is located. You need to click on the histology training site. And if that doesn't show up here, you need to go to this button over here on the right, which has sites, and choose Win Histology Training. And then turn on this bar to say automatically add the new sites to your favorites bar. Now I haven't added anything new, so nothing happens. But if you've done that for the first time, you'll have to reload the page and a button shows up right around here. So the exam is right here. You click on assignments, tests, and surveys. And because I've taken this before, I don't have a brand new screen that pops up here, but basically you'd see something that looks like this, and it would say begin exam right around this area. If you want to retry the exam because you've done it before, then you just click try again right here. So either launching for the first time or trying again should show up at the same area. For those of you who haven't found your certificate yet but have passed the exam, come over here to review. Scroll down all the way to the bottom of the directions, and you'll find a link that says View Certificate. Okay. Just click on that and your certificate will appear in a new window.
Ken?
Yes.
Okay, a lot of email. But there are questions in the chat Q&A box asking about, they already log in, but then there are questions about first name and then it doesn't work. Like the page asking first name and so on do not appear. How to solve the problem? And he clicked welcome to Laulima and then will appear you have completed, and then the page asking first name and so on do not appear. You see that when you have that create new account?
Yes. So if you've logged in once before, that's the only chance Laulima gives you to register.
Okay.
Are they getting a message that says they've already registered?
It says you have completed. I don't know. Ini Pak Denny ada pertanyaan. I don't know. maybe.
I suspect that that's what's happened. So let me see if I can find an example.
Bapak Ibu, kalau misalnya ini bisa tolong dicek ya emailnya di spam folder. Mungkin sudah pernah terima tapi mungkin masuk ke spam. Karena tadi Pak Ken bilang bahwa dari semua email yang saya ketik di sini, dia kirim ulang, hanya 5 yang berhasil dikirim, selebihnya dikasih tahu oleh sistem Lau 5 bahwa sudah pernah dikirim. Jadi tolong cek di spam folder masing-masing.
So here is my invitation to La Lima for a fake email that I sent up. And last time we had a meeting, I clicked on this and showed everybody how to go through the process of adding their first and last name, their login information, which is just the email address that you provided to register for the course. And then you make up your own password. Now, when I try to click on this again, it says you have already completed the form. So La Lima recognizes you. The thing to do is go to this site, and I'll zoom in, and if you remember what your login information is, oh, it's not going to get bigger. It's lalima.hawaii.edu. Ross, is there an easier La Lima login address?
Sorry, Ken, I dropped in the chat. Do you see that?
Oh no, sorry, I'm looking at my screen.
So lalima.hawaii.edu/portal.
Okay. And I just tried typing lalima.hawaii.edu and it automatically went to the portal site. So
right.
lalima.hawaii.edu, type that, and then over here you want to go to guest login. This is for people with a UH password, University of Hawaii email account and password. Everybody else will be going in through guest login, using the information that you use to establish your account. Ross, you're muted. Are you trying to talk? Okay.
Okay, Ken, there is a question here. Someone said that she had created first name and last name and password, and then she went out, maybe log out, and then when she wants to log in again, she couldn't. It says username and password invalid.
I don't know what to do in this case, Annie, because it could.
Okay, let me answer. Maybe she accidentally clicked the caps lock. There is also another question, Ken, that she had received the email, and when she accepted the invitation, then it prompted her to a message that says, you have already completed this form.
Yes, so in that case, that's what I think other people are experiencing too. Then she needs to go to lalima.hawaii.edu and click guest login and use her login credentials to get into the site. So once you've used the site, once you've used the link once and registered, you can't use it again.
Okay, so say it again, link. What is it?
lalima.hawaii.edu.
Oh, the one that Ross shared?
Yes, just type that into the address bar, and then it'll be a login page, and the participant will need to click on guest login.
Okay. Is it guest singular or guest plural? Plural, singular, right?
I think so, yeah. It'll be obvious.
Okay.
Hey, Ken and Annie, I'm pasting a video, a YouTube video I just made of what Ken was showing. If people ask how to find their certificate or how to log on the website once they've registered, it's a 2-minute video and it'll show them.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, let me paste this. I think I'll click in the chat all panelists attendee.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
that'll show how to get on the site once they've registered, where to find the exam, and where to find their certificate.
Oke, Bapak Ibu, teman-teman semua, coba dilihat di chat ya. Baru aja saya copy paste di situ link ke YouTube untuk yang berisi instruksi bagaimana caranya login ke portal Lau 5. Jadi di situ ada langkah-langkah step by step how to log in to Lau 5 ya, yang di-share oleh Pak Ros. Thank you Pak Ros.
And somebody else just made a very good point. They got the message that they were using the incorrect username or password, and apparently there's a link to click that says forgot password or forgot username. So
Okay.
or maybe it's just password that they'll send a link to the existing email. So there is a way in there. I hadn't thought of that. That was one of the comments in the question and answer.
Okay, so there is a link to forget password, yeah?
There should be a link saying I forgot my password.
Oke, ada pertanyaan dari Ibu Ikromatun Nafsiyah, apakah bisa mendapatkan materi dan rekaman selama seminar ini berlangsung? Jawabannya iya Ibu, nanti setelah selesai 4 hari, 4 sesi, maka nanti akan kami share ke semua alamat email, link di mana rekaman itu bisa diakses. Jadi tolong ya, emailnya harus betul, jangan salah ketik, nanti akan mental. Ya, akan kita kirim setelah semua 4 sesi itu berhasil. Selesai. Ken, there is a question about whether the certificate has expiry date.
No.
Ken, there is also a question whether on the certificate there is an information about how many hours is the training.
Unfortunately, there's not, and there's nothing that we can do about that. The certificate is automatically generated by the University of Hawaii system, and we do not have the ability to modify it. So,
There is also a question about the score, Ken. Is the highest score for this test maximum of 30? Because
yes.
in email it says that the score must be 90. How can we get score 90?
90%. So 27 correct.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we are now have reached the end of the test attempt question session. And now we can proceed to Ken, who will explain the introduction to the statistic of Excel ya. Pendahuluan untuk statistik Excel untuk modul berikutnya, modul 2 yang akan diberikan pada tanggal 1 Februari. 2 minggu lagi. Silahkan Pak Ken.
Okay, thank you all for sticking with us through that session. Apparently there were a lot of problems with logging into La Lima and finding the exam and finding certificates. I hope we've resolved the majority of the questions. From some of the replies I was seeing, it seems like we were getting there. So please do stick with it. Contact us if you're still having troubles, and we'll try to find a way to work through it. But our sincere hope is that everybody will earn the certificate for this first portion of the training. Which leads me into the next portion of the training. When we come back for the next 2 sessions, we're going to talk about statistical analysis in Excel. And this is going to be a lot of working through a data set that we have, showing you an Excel spreadsheet that we've set up that will do quite a bit of the work for you, and then showing you how to do some plotting of the results so that you can graphically represent the results that we're getting in Excel. One of the things that we're going to need to go through this portion of the course, or I'm sorry, when we do this, we're going to recommend that you just view. If you're really ambitious, you can try to view and also take the steps that we're going to be showing you, but we think it's going to be difficult to do both. You'd probably need a setup with a couple of monitors and watching on one screen while you're trying to work on the other. So even if you're only watching, I wanted to show you where to, what some special tools that you're going to need in Excel so that you can succeed if you do these exercises afterwards. And Eric and I have been talking about what the exam questions are going to look like for this second or for the third and fourth sessions. And some of it is going to be that we're going to ask you to do these analyses. So it's going to be in your best interest to get yourself set up now so that you have all the tools that you're going to need to take the exam. We've chosen to use Excel because it's a pretty common package. And we know that some people like to use other packages, but unfortunately, we couldn't write instructions or provide examples for every package that's out there. So we settled on Excel and we settled on R, which is what Eric is going to talk about. So for Excel, what are you going to need? There's a couple of add-ins that are going to be necessary for you to successfully navigate your way through these analyses. When you launch Excel, it takes you to the home page. What you need are add-ins that will show up on the data page, and I'd like to show you where that would be right now. If you don't remember having ever added these add-ins, chances are they don't exist. So what I'd like to do right now is show you where to find them. So when you click on data at the top, we get a new ribbon that shows up, and over here in Analyze, we're going to need the Data Analysis Tool Pack and the Solver add-in to successfully do the analyses that we're going to show you the next time that we meet. Now, if you don't have those, don't worry, they're free, but you have to activate them in Excel. And I'd like to show you how to do that now. Whoops.
Sorry, Ken, we had a question. Somebody asked if this will work with Open Office.
Open Office?
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never used it. And that's the problem, is that hopefully people can try this and find out whether it exists or not. But I honestly don't know because I've never used Open Office.
Okay, thanks.
I'm sorry that I can't answer that. So the first thing I'd like to show you is how to find the analysis tool pack. And basically, don't worry. I know there's a lot of letters up here on the screen right now. I've already loaded this PowerPoint presentation to Laulima, so you can go into Laulima and copy and paste this address to get to the site. Another option you have is just going online and searching Load Analysis Toolpak Excel. And if you do that, what you will find, the first thing that pops up, look for the one that's published by Microsoft, and you'll find a set of instructions that you can click on. So again, all I typed was Load Analysis Toolpak Excel. And then you'll see that there's a set of instructions. If you have Windows operating system or if you have a Mac operating system, you click on this button and it shows you how to load the analysis toolpak. The solver add-in is basically the same thing. I'm going to provide the address here. This address is, the PowerPoint presentation has already been added to Laulima under resources. I'll show you where that's at the end here, so everybody can see where that's at. Or just search Load Solver Add-in Excel. And in this case, you'll be taken to a page that looks something like this. Here you can see there's a Windows and a Mac operating system choices, and there's 3 more operating systems that you can use for the solver add-in for some reason. Okay, so even if you're not planning on following along with us the next time we meet, in order to successfully complete the exam, you're going to need both the data analysis and the data analysis toolpak and the solver add-in. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is take you to Laulima. Oops, unfortunately, I logged out. Oh, I didn't want to do that one. Hold on. So I'm on the Histology training website. Just click over here on resources. And down here, data or statistical analysis in Excel preparation. That's going to be the PowerPoint presentation that has those 2 addresses to find both data analysis toolpak and the solver add-in. Or again, you could just type in the search bar. So some of the other things that we're going to need to complete the next session are the data set, which is right here, raw data ILL. That's a comma separated values file. We're going to be using that one. We're also going to be using the SOP data template. So those are 2 things that I'll be working with and showing you how to do the statistical analysis next time. Finally, you're going to see something very similar here, and this is for your own knowledge. In case you ever go out and do this reproductive analysis on your own, SOP blank data sheet has those calculations that I showed you last time for mean number of eggs in that diluted volume that you were doing for the fecundity analysis, and also the automatic calculation for fecundity estimates. Okay, the SOP data template does not automatically calculate those. It's just basically a data sheet that's available, assuming that your data exists someplace else. We're going to cut the data from, or we're going to copy the data from the raw data and paste it into here. Okay, if you were entering data new, you would want to use the blank data sheet. Right. So that's all that I have to say to prepare you for our Excel statistical analysis next time. And with that, I believe it's time for Eric to tell you how to find what you need to do the R analysis.
Thanks, Ken. I think we're still on you.
It's your time now, Ken. Sorry, Eric.
Okay, it looks like attendee view still can. I'll start going. Can I, Dendi, can I share screen? Is that possible?
Go ahead, Eric.
It's saying host disabled participant screen sharing. Still same when I try and click this share screen button. There we go. Thank you. So some of you may be familiar with the R statistical software package. What I'm going to walk through today is just simply where to find it. So go to your web browser, whatever your favorite one is, and just type in R, the letter R, and software, if I can type it. So R, the letter R, and software. And the first thing that will come up is the R project for statistical computing. So you'll select that. And you'll see off to the left, there's the word download. Under that is this word CRAN, and that's just an acronym. So you click that link, and it comes up with this list. And what this list is just several different servers around the world that all provide the same thing. So if you want, you can click the cloud server. That's basically at the R sort of headquarters for RStudio. If you want, you can scroll down, and there's actually a mirror site for Indonesia. So we can click that. I'll go to that one, but these will all take you to the same place, no matter which one you click. A window will come up, and you'll have the instructions download and install R. And depending upon the type of operating system that you have, you want to click one of these buttons. So my computer is a Windows operating system, so I'll click this download R for Windows. And you see this next window, and in nice bold and underlined, install R for the first time. And so if I click that link, you're going to get this download R for Windows. And once I click that, it's going to start the download. And like any other software, once that downloads on your machine, you'll have an executable. You'll select that, go through just the basic steps to install. And then what you'll see, let's see if I can find where my share is again. What you'll see when you open R is just windows that look like this. And so we've got basically this larger window that encompasses the software program. And then we'll have a console where we actively enter code here. And then if we want to create some scripts, they'll go in this editor window. And so part of what we'll be doing for the statistical analysis is we'll be recreating the analysis steps that Ken presents in Excel. He'll go through a lot more detail, and I think that detail will help you understand each step. But what we'll present after the Excel analysis examples is we'll present that same work done in R, which basically is a single script that we'll write that will methodically work through the different lines of that software script, execute them, and you'll see the outputs, and the outputs will match the kind of analyses like size at maturity, sex ratio, et cetera, that Ken's going to cover, but we'll just be using R. And so basically at this point, I'm just trying to point you to where you can find the R software. It's free. You don't have to pay anything. You just download it onto your machine and follow the instructions that I provided. And if you can, have that done before we get to the next module. And that's it for that intro.
Eric, we have a question whether the script for R will be available on Lima.
It will be.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, it's already in the SOP. Is that correct?
It is. It's not. I shall say all of the scripts that will be running are in the SOP, but they're in the text, so it's not a standalone file right now, but we'll provide a standalone file for participants. And I think that's it. So where are we on the schedule? Is it now wrap up time?
Yeah, actually now it's your wrapping up time, and then after that we are good for the day.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks, Annie. Well, yeah, folks, this concludes this first module in our training course on fish reproductive analysis. We're extremely happy that close to 500 participants from Indonesian government, academia, NGOs, and the public have participated. And on behalf of myself and the other instructors, I want to thank you for participating in these 2 sessions and hope that you learned new information about fish reproduction. In this first module, provided an overview of the anatomy, development, and classification of fish reproductive structures. We described the characteristics of female and male gonads, ovotestes, and other structures, and presented microphotographs of gonads and other tissue sections as examples during the training. We also addressed questions from course participants and provided time to attempt the online exam. And most of the information and resources that were presented are from our technical report titled Standard Operating Procedure for Histology-Based Rapid Reproductive Analysis of Tropical Fishes, for which we've provided online links, and you can also get from ResearchGate. And please note that in the coming weeks, a translated version of the SOP in Bahasa Indonesia will also be made available online. So finally, we gave a brief introduction to the software Excel and R that will be used for the second module in our training, Statistical Analysis of Reproductive Data, which will be February 1st and February 4th at 9 a.m. Jakarta time. During this second module, we will introduce the statistical analysis of reproductive data, including methods to calculate size at maturity, sex ratios, fecundity, and other traits. We will also provide an example data set and use it to demonstrate these different analysis methods using R and Excel. And just a reminder that for both modules, as you've seen today, exams are offered for participants to test their knowledge of the course materials. These exams will be offered online for the rest of the year. It can be taken as many times as necessary to achieve a passing grade. Once the exam is passed, the participant can receive a certificate of completion issued online from the University of Hawaii. Thank you again for participating in this online course so far. We really look forward to working with you again and hope to see you for the second module of the course. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Eric, Pak Ken, and Pak Ross for the very interesting material presented today for the last section of Module 1. So, Bapak Ibu, terima kasih atas partisipasinya untuk hari ini, dan sekedar mengingatkan lagi bahwa training ini akan direkam dari semua sesi 4 sesi akan direkam dan akan kami share melalui email setelah sesi terakhir. Jadi nanti Bapak Ibu bisa mengulang kembali ya materi training yang sudah diberikan oleh tim instruktur di waktu tersendiri Bapak Ibu. Terus untuk masalah bagaimana cara menglogin ke portal Lau 5, tolong cek email yang sudah kami kirim. Di situ ada attachment lampiran instruksi arahan cara login Lau 5. Atau mungkin jika lebih nyaman melihat YouTube, tadi sudah kami share di chat ya, chat box alamat YouTube. Bagaimana caranya untuk login ke portal Lau 5. Mungkin itu, terus juga lama jam dari dari training ini tidak akan ditulis di sertifikat. Saya paham bahwa beberapa peserta adalah PNS dan membutuhkan informasi lama training pelatihan ini. Namun di poster iklan training ini ada informasi tanggal dan jam training. Jadi mungkin bisa dipakai informasi poster iklan itu. Kalau mungkin bisa nanti akan kami kirim ulang poster itu melalui email. Mungkin itu dulu Dari kami semua, terima kasih Bapak Ibu semua. Sampai ketemu lagi 2 minggu yang akan datang. Saya Eni Buhari, pamit undur. Terima kasih, selamat siang. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.